Commander Jin rubbed his tired eyes as the emergency transmission filled the bridge of the human rescue vessel. The holographic display showed a nightmare scenario. 3 different alien species trapped deep underground on one of the galaxy's most dangerous planets. The blue-skinned Zephyrians, with their delicate wing membranes, the tentacled aquatic nautiloids, and the crystal-like lithoids, were all stuck beneath tons of collapsed metal and rock. "Sir, this is the 4th distress call this week," Admiral Q said, his voice heavy with concern. He pulled up the mission files on his tablet. The Galactic Rescue Consortium has already lost 2 ships trying to reach them. 6 standard cycles, that's almost 3 Earth weeks they've been trapped down there. Lieutenant Na whistled low as she read the planet's atmospheric data. "Look at these numbers, Commander. Surface temperature hits 200 degrees Celsius during the day. The gravity is 3 times what most alien species can handle. In the air," she shook her head, "pure poison. Sulfur compounds that would burn through their breathing systems in minutes." Jin walked closer to the main display, studying the collapsed mining station. The structure looked like a crushed tin can buried under a mountain of rubble. What happened to the previous rescue teams? First team turned back after losing 2 crew members to heat exhaustion, Q explained. Second team's equipment failed completely. Their atmospheric suits couldn't handle the pressure and toxic gases. The third team, he paused. They barely made it to orbit before their life support systems gave out. "And now they're calling us," Na said with a slight smile. "The crazy humans from the Death World." Jin could hear the desperation in the alien commander's voice through the static-filled transmission. These weren't just numbers on a screen. They were living beings with families, dreams, and hopes. The Zephyrians were probably terrified. Their fragile bodies never meant for such harsh conditions. The nautiloids would be struggling without proper water filtration systems. The lithoids might be slowly fracturing from the temperature changes. They wouldn't contact Earth unless they were completely out of options, Jin muttered, making his decision. "Lieutenant Ney, plot a course for Kepler 4 for 2C, maximum speed." "Sir, are you sure? The conditions down there could kill us too." Jin turned to face his crew, seeing the familiar mixture of fear and determination in their eyes. This was what humans did. They went where others couldn't, survived what others wouldn't, and never left anyone behind. "That's exactly why they called us," he said firmly. "Time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders can really do. All hands, prepare for rescue operations." The Tenacious changed course toward the impossible world, carrying humanity's reputation into the unknown once again. The Tenacious burst out of hyperspace with a brilliant flash of light, and the crew immediately saw the scope of the disaster ahead. Kepler 4, for to see hung in space like an angry red eye, its surface churning with violent storms and volcanic activity. Around the planet, 5 alien rescue ships drifted in perfect formation, but they weren't moving toward the surface. They were just sitting there, waiting. "Captain, you activated the communication system," and immediately several alien voices filled the bridge. The lead commander's voice carried a mixture of relief and skepticism that made Jin clench his jaw. "Humans, you're finally here," the alien transmitted. His tone suggested he wasn't particularly happy about it, "though I must express my doubts about your chances of success. Our ships represent the most advanced rescue technology in 3 star systems, and we've been unable to penetrate even the upper atmosphere safely." Engineering Chief Tay was already running scans of the planet's surface, her fingers flying across the control panel. The data that appeared on screen made everyone on the bridge go quiet. "Commander, this is worse than the reports suggested. The mining station isn't just buried, it's completely entombed under 3 kilometers of unstable rock and metal debris. And look at these seismic readings." She highlighted a section of the scan. "The ground is literally shaking itself apart. These tremors would collapse any tunnel we try to dig." Through the view screen, Jin could see the alien ships maintaining a safe distance from the planet. Their sleek, advanced hulls gleamed with sophisticated sensor arrays and rescue equipment that probably cost more than Earth's entire space fleet. Yet here they were, paralyzed by conditions that seemed impossible to overcome. The atmospheric pressure alone would crush most of our rescue pods. Another alien commander added, "We've run every simulation possible. The toxic gases would eat through our breathing apparatus in less than an hour." Jin watched his crew working with quiet efficiency around him, while the alien commanders continued discussing the technical impossibilities. Specialist 1 was already pulling on her modified environmental suit. Medic Ra had 3 different life support configurations spread across his workstation, each one designed to keep a different alien species alive in hostile conditions. "Sir, descent pods are ready," one reported. "I've reinforced the heat shields with extra plating from our cargo bay. Life support systems configured for all 3 species," Ra added. "It's not pretty, but it'll keep them breathing." The alien commanders were still transmitting warnings about atmospheric density and equipment failure when Jin made his decision. "While they debate strategy, we deploy. All teams, suit up. We're going down there." The protests from the alien fleet grew louder, but Jin's team was already moving. Specialist 1 felt her suit's metal joints creak and strain as she dropped through the thick, poisonous atmosphere of Kepler-4 for to see. The descent pod's hull glowed, cherry red from the heat, and warning lights flashed across her helmet display like an angry Christmas tree. The atmospheric pressure outside was crushing, literally crushing. She could hear the constant groaning of her reinforced suit as it fought against forces that would turn most alien bodies into soup. "Descent team, report status." Commander Jin's voice crackled through the communication system, distorted by the electromagnetic storms raging across the planet's surface. "Still breathing, sir," Juan replied, gritting her teeth as she manually steered the pod toward the collapsed mining station. Through her visor, she could see twisted metal and rock formations that looked like the planet had chewed up the station and spit it back out. Landing in 30 seconds, the pod crashed into a pile of debris with a bone-jarring impact that would have killed any of the delicate alien species they were trying to rescue. One unbuckled herself, grabbed her equipment pack, and stepped out into hell itself. The temperature gauge on her suit read 190 degrees Celsius. The air was thick with sulfur compounds that would burn through unprotected lungs in seconds. She started crawling through a gap in the wreckage that was barely wider than her shoulders, pushing her equipment ahead of her. The tunnel was pitch black except for the beam of her helmet light, and every few minutes the whole structure would shake from seismic activity. Rocks fell around her like deadly rain. "Contact," she finally reported, her voice tight with excitement and exhaustion. "I've got survivors, Zephyrian Group, Eastern Sector. 5 of them, looks like they're in some kind of emergency shelter." Through the collapsed tunnel, she could see the aliens huddled together. Their blue skin was pale with fear, and their delicate wing membranes were folded tightly against their bodies. They looked up at her with huge eyes, probably thinking they were hallucinating. High above in orbit, the alien rescue commanders watched their monitors in complete disbelief. Specialist Spin was following one's path, dragging behind him a collection of makeshift atmospheric processors that he'd built from spare parts and sheer stubbornness. "How are they even conscious?" one alien observer whispered to his colleague. "Our computer models show that any carbon-based life form should be dead within minutes in those conditions." Lieutenant DA's voice came through the communication system, with a hint of amusement despite the deadly serious situation. "Because we're from Earth, friends. This is just Tuesday for us." Commander Jin stood in the middle of the communication room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the disaster zone below. Around him, the voices of alien commanders from 5 different rescue ships filled the air with panic and disbelief. He took a deep breath and began explaining what his team was going to do. "Here's the plan," Jin said, pointing to the 3-dimensional map of the collapsed mining station. We manually dig rescue tunnels through these unstable rock formations. My teams will work in shifts around the clock, even during the site events. We'll build custom life support systems for each trapped species and extract them one group at a time. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the protests began. Absolutely impossible. The Galactic Rescue Fleet leader shouted, his voice crackling through the communication system. Human, do you understand what you're suggesting? The Zephyrians have exoskeletons made of calcium carbonate. They'll shatter like glass if you move them wrong. Their wing membranes are so delicate that a slight pressure change will rupture their internal organs. Another alien commander jumped in. The nautiloids breathe through liquid filtration systems. They need perfectly balanced water chemistry, or their gills will burn. How can you possibly maintain that in those toxic conditions? And the lithoids added a third voice, sounding increasingly desperate. Their crystalline bodies require temperature control within 1 degree, or they'll fracture and die. Our most advanced medical pods can barely keep them stable in perfect laboratory conditions. While the alien commanders continued arguing, Engineer Yoon had already left the communication room. Through the view screen, Jin could see her in the cargo bay, sparks flying as she welded together pieces of salvaged mining equipment. She was building something that looked like a cross between a medical pod and a deep-sea diving bell. You're all talking about precision and perfect conditions, Jin said, interrupting the alien debate. But those people don't have time for perfect. They have time for whatever we can jury-rig in the next 6 hours. 6 hours. The fleet leader's voice rose to a higher pitch. Our engineering teams need 6 months to design proper life support systems. Give us 6 hours, Jin repeated calmly, watching Yoon drag another piece of equipment across the cargo bay. We'll build individual rescue pods using components from your ships and ours. Whatever it takes, you'll kill them all. The alien commander protested. Jin looked directly into the communication display, his voice steady and determined. No, we'll save them all. That's what humans do. The planet shook like a living thing trying to throw off a bad dream. Deep underground, Specialist Han felt the earthquake building from a low rumble to a violent convulsion that made the collapsed mining station groan and shift around her. Chunks of metal ceiling crashed down just inches from her helmet, and she could hear the stressed metal of the station's framework screaming under the pressure. All teams, seismic event in progress. Captain Yu's voice crackled through the communication system from the surface. Magnitude 8.7 and climbing. Above. In orbit, the 5 alien rescue ships immediately began moving away from the planet. Their advanced sensors had detected the earthquake 30 seconds before it hit, and their captains weren't taking any chances. The sleek vessels retreated to what their computers calculated as a safe distance, their crews watching in horror as the planet's surface rippled like water, but the human teams stayed exactly where they were. Cave-in, Section 7. Han reported, her voice steady, despite the chaos around her. She could see 3 nautiloids trapped behind a wall of fallen rock, their tentacles moving weakly in the toxic air. Without hesitation, she pulled out her controlled explosive charges, devices that would have horrified alien safety experts. Setting charges to redirect the rockfall. Stand by. The explosion shook the already unstable tunnel, but it worked. The falling rocks shifted direction, creating a small opening. Han immediately crawled through, dragging behind her a jury-rigged liquid breathing apparatus that looked like it was held together with tape and hope. 2 levels below, Minek Bo was having her own problems. She was crawling through a tunnel that was actively collapsing, carrying a crystalline lithoid in a temperature-controlled pod that she'd built from a food preservation unit and some heating elements. The passage was so narrow that her shoulders scraped against the walls, and every few seconds another chunk of ceiling would crash down behind her. Almost through, she muttered to herself, pushing the pod ahead of her as the tunnel sealed itself shut just moments after she passed. If she'd been 30 seconds slower, she would have been trapped forever. Up in orbit, the alien observers watched their monitoring screens with growing amazement and terror. The humans are insane, one alien commander transmitted to his fleet. They're working in conditions that should kill them instantly. Our medical databases show that carbon-based lifeforms can't survive those stress levels. Captain Yu, coordinating the impossible rescue operation from his position on the planet's surface, heard the transmission and couldn't help but smile grimly. That's exactly why we're called Deathworlders, friends. Down in the collapsed mining station, each alien species was like a delicate puzzle that could kill you if you got it wrong. The human rescue teams had studied alien biology during their journey, but reading about it in textbooks was very different from trying to keep someone alive in a crumbling tunnel filled with poisonous gas. The Zephyrians were the most fragile. Their bodies were built for low-pressure environments with thin, clean air. Here on Kepler-442c, the crushing atmospheric pressure would make their internal organs explode like balloons. Specialist Jun found herself working in almost complete darkness, her helmet light barely cutting through the thick, sulfurous air. She had to rebuild atmospheric processors, using nothing but mining equipment and her own hands. "I can't see what I'm doing," she muttered, her fingers working by touch alone as she connected pressure valves to air filtration systems. The Zephyrians huddled nearby, their blue skin growing paler by the minute. Every breath was agony for them in this toxic environment. Jun worked faster, sweat dripping down her face inside her helmet. Almost got it, ... there. The pressure gauge stabilized, and the Zephyrians immediately began breathing easier. One of them touched Chun's glove with a trembling hand, a gesture that clearly meant thank you in any language. 2 tunnels over, Engineer Tay was dealing with an equally deadly problem. The nautiloids breathed liquid instead of air, but not just any liquid. Their gills needed perfectly balanced chemical solutions, or they would burn and die within minutes. Tay had found some damaged mining robots, and was pulling out their coolant systems, connecting tubes and pumps in ways that would have made their manufacturers weep. "This is completely insane," she said to herself, watching the liquid circulation system come to life. "But it's working. Pressure's stable, temperature's good. They'll survive the trip to the surface." The most challenging were their crystalline bodies were beautiful, but incredibly fragile. Even small temperature changes could cause cracks that would spread through their entire body, like a shattered window. Menekara had torn apart half the ship's heating systems, creating individual transport pods that looked like high-tech sleeping bags. "Each one needs different temperature settings," Ra explained over the radio. "This one needs to stay at exactly 47 degrees. This one needs 52 degrees. 1 degree off, and they die." High above in orbit, the alien rescue commanders watched the humans work with growing amazement. "How do they solve problems so quickly?" One commander whispered to another. "Our best engineers would need weeks to design these solutions." Commander Jin stared at the geological readings on his tablet, and the numbers made his blood run cold. Deep beneath the planet's surface, seismic sensors were detecting something that shouldn't be possible. The planet's core was becoming unstable. Massive pressure buildups were creating fractures that went down thousands of kilometers, and when those fractures connected, the entire mining station would be buried forever under molten rock. "Sir, we've got maybe 2 hours before total collapse," Engineer Tay reported, her voice tight with worry. "After that, nobody's getting out." Jin looked at the rescue progress map. His teams had located all the survivors, but they were spread across 17 different sections of the collapsed station. Standard rescue protocol would be to extract them one group at a time, ensuring safety and proper life support for each species. But standard protocol was written for planets that weren't trying to tear themselves apart. "All teams, this is Commander Jin," he said into his communication device. "We're changing the plan. Final ascent begins now. Simultaneous extraction of all survivors. I know this means splitting up beyond safe operational limits, but we don't have a choice. The responses came back immediately from his scattered teams. Each voice calm, despite the impossible situation they were facing. Copy that, sir, Specialist Da replied. She was deep underground, carrying 2 Zephyrians, 1 under each arm, while dragging a makeshift life support unit behind her that was literally held together with cargo straps and determination. The weight should have been impossible for one person to carry, but adrenaline and stubborn human willpower made it work. Moving 3 nautiloids now, one reported from another tunnel. Her liquid-filled transport pods were leaking. The toxic gases were getting thicker by the minute, and her own air supply was running dangerously low. But she kept moving forward, hauling her precious cargo through passages that were filling with poisonous gas. Up in orbit, the alien rescue ship commanders pressed against their view screens, watching sensor readings that defied everything they knew about rescue operations. The humans were moving at speeds that should have been impossible, while carrying loads that should have crushed them. They're actually going to pull this off, one alien observer whispered to his colleague, his voice filled with amazement. Look, at their vital signs they're pushing their bodies past every safety limit, but they're still functioning. The planet shook again, harder this time, but the humans just kept climbing toward the surface, refusing to abandon anyone. The grinding sound of metal tearing apart echoed through the tunnel as the primary extraction winch system gave up completely. Sparks flew from the control panel, and the lights went out one by one. In the sudden darkness, most species would have frozen in panic, but the humans just adapted. Equipment's dead, Specialist Ben reported calmly, as if his multi-million credit rescue gear hadn't just turned into expensive scrap metal. Above him, chunks of ceiling were starting to fall faster, each piece large enough to crush an alien survivor. Without hesitation, Ben positioned himself directly underneath the debris. Field braced his legs. I've got this. Keep moving the survivors. What happened next would have been impossible for any other species in the galaxy. Ben used his own body as a human shock absorber, letting pieces of falling rock and metal crash into his reinforced suit while his teammates passed survivors through the collapsing passage behind him. His suit's pressure readings went red, then stayed red, but he held his position. Ben, your suit integrity is failing. Engineer Yoon called out, watching her teammate absorb impacts that should have crushed him. I know, he grunted, catching a particularly large piece of debris with his shoulder, but they're not. Further down the tunnel, Yoon was dealing with her own crisis. The delicate lithoids needed to be moved through a series of unstable rock formations that shifted every few seconds. Any mechanical transport system would have been crushed immediately. So she did something that alien rescue manuals said was impossible. She created a human chain. Careful with this one, she said, gently passing a crystalline being to Specialist Jun. Temperature's critical. The lithoid moved from human to human, each person using their own body heat and careful handling to keep the fragile alien alive. When the backup power systems failed completely, plunging them into absolute darkness, they didn't even slow down. They worked by touch alone, their hands reading the rock formations like braille, finding handholds and safe passages that their instruments had missed. Up in orbit, the alien rescue commanders watched their sensor readings in stunned silence. The humans were solving problems faster than their most advanced computers could even identify them. They're improvising solutions faster than our computers can calculate possibilities. The Galactic Rescue Commander transmitted to his fleet, his voice filled with awe. Look at this. They're using their own bodies as rescue equipment. Their organic neural networks are processing spatial relationships and structural engineering simultaneously. The rescue had become something no alien species had ever seen before. A testament to human adaptability under pressure that would have paralyzed any other species in the galaxy. Medic Ra emerged from the tunnel carrying the last lithoid survivor. Just as the ground beneath the mining station gave one final, violent shudder. Behind her, The entire structure collapsed inward, with a roar that could be heard even through the planet's thick atmosphere. 30 seconds later, and that crystalline being would have been lost forever. "That's everyone," she panted into her radio, setting the temperature-controlled pod down gently on the Tenacious's loading ramp. "All survivors accounted for." Commander Jin stood at the edge of the rescue zone, watching the last clouds of dust settle over what had once been the mining station. Around him, his exhausted team was helping alien survivors into medical pods, their movements still precise, despite the fact that they'd been working in deadly conditions for over 18 hours straight. The communication system crackled to life, with voices from the alien rescue ships still orbiting above. "Impossible," the lead alien commander whispered, his voice barely audible over the static. "Absolutely impossible. Our computers calculated a 0% chance of successful extraction. Under those conditions." Commander Jin pulled off his helmet and took his first breath of recycled ship air in almost a day. His hair was plastered to his head with sweat. His face was streaked with dirt and exhaustion, but he was smiling. Just another day's work. The rescued aliens were staring at the humans with something that looked like religious awe. The Zep kept touching the atmospheric processors that had kept them alive, as if they couldn't believe such crude-looking equipment had actually worked. The nautiloids were examining their liquid-breathing apparatus with fascination. The lithoids, despite their crystalline nature, somehow managed to look grateful. Within 3 hours, the official transmission arrived from the Galactic Rescue Consortium headquarters. The message was brief but historic. Humanity was formally invited to lead all high-risk rescue operations across the galaxy. Other species would provide support, technology, and resources. But when lives hung in the balance under impossible conditions, humans would be in charge. Captain Yu gathered the alien rescue crews for a final communication before departure. "Welcome to the Deathworlders standard," he told them, his voice carrying across multiple star systems. "We don't just survive the impossible, we make it look routine." As the Tenacious prepared to jump back into hyperspace, Jin looked at the mission reports already coming in from across the galaxy. A mining accident on a high-radiation world. Survivors trapped in a collapsing space station near a black hole. A medical emergency on a planet where the very air was corrosive. Jin smiled. Somewhere out there, another impossible rescue was waiting for his team.